As a young woman in South Africa, I think politically we are, at this day and age and the time that we are in, I think politically our government and our society is being challenged in ways that it hasn't been challenged in the last 21 years.
I think that to a large extent women are still second-rate citizens in a lot of ways, in a lot of places, in a lot of countries, in a lot of institutions. Systematically, that sort of seems to be ingrained in a lot of societies and communities. And I think that, again, going back to education, I think educating yourself and getting the right influences that uplift you and empower you as a woman is your responsibility to yourself and to future generations that follow on from your footsteps. And I mean, for myself, personally, musically, a lot of my influences growing up were, women singing and making their own music and sort of really representing in times when that wasn't the norm.
I think that definitely in the past 20 years we probably could have grown a lot better than we have in certain aspects. I think politics aside, as a country, we've seen huge growth, and I think that narrowing it down and a lot of people do that, and like you said, it's all about politics, and people narrow down the future of South Africa or the current standpoint of South Africa based on our politics. I think that there have been mistakes made and possibly not enough plans to rectify those mistakes, or not enough admittance. It's come out very late, at a very late stage, that OCR actually. And I think a really good leader would have admitted to it straight away. You realize a mistake, and yes, we made a mistake, okay, but how are we going to fix it?
Our futures really are in our hands, because we cannot rely on the government. We cannot rely on any external powers other than the very power we have within. And I'm very inspired by this writer, Ayn Rand. I absolutely love her. She's the mother of objectivism, this objectivist philosophy. And she pushes self-reliance, and she believes that in a truly free economy, we would still flourish. And that's what it's about. I feel it's about discovering what it is you as an individual are gifted with, discovering what your strengths are, your resources. And when I say resources, people are quick to run to money. Money is only one resource. And for me right now, even having gone through times where I haven't had money, I know that my most valuable resource is actually myself, and that natural resources might not be trees and flowers, but natural resources are the resources that we are born with naturally, like my character, the ability to communicate, my personality, my gifts, those things that I was not taught.
Money seems to be running the world, and so it's important that we maintain a level of equality, and in doing so, you need to be practicing your right to vote. You need to be politically aware. You need to have an understanding of your social positioning in society, because whether you like it or not, whether you see yourself as spirit or whatever, your life experiences are determined by those factors. Because I'm black, because I'm a woman, I will get and not get various opportunities. I will be treated and perceived to be a certain way, and I obviously have to prove more of myself because of the hegemonic society or hegemonic system that we live in, that is governed by patriarchy and capitalism and obviously race. So it's important to be politically aware. It's important to exercise your right to be political and to understand your power and the fact that you have an influence.
If the woman of the politics come together, I'm sure there would be a solution. You know, I'm not saying that men are bad, but I feel like even if they just put heads together, I mean, why not? Why can't we have free education? You know what I mean? I wanted to study music while I was working at Orlando Towers. And it was a permanent job. I left a permanent job to do the arts, you know? And I couldn't afford my fees. And at that time, I was struggling. You know, how can I pay my fees while I'm working? And I was like, you know what? Let me just forget about studying music. You know, but I'll just pursue it because I love it and I'm passionate about it. And that's what happened. And I went on and I wrote a song called Why. It's all about, if you'd listen it closely on SoundCloud, it talks about how students should be the forefront of, and it was before the whole hashtag Fees Must Fall movement. And it was just an encouragement to say you can still do it even though, you know, you can't really afford, but just don't dwell much on looking cool or just remember the future of where you're going to be, where you're going to, you know, just think about that. Don't dwell much of, I need a cool sneaker to show my friends or whatever, you know. It's not about that. At the end of the day, it's about your life. So why can't they make our education for free? You know, I definitely agree with the students. You know, we should have free education.
We have so much hatred with our youth. That's so unnecessary because, I mean, we were not, I mean, I was born during apartheid, but I knew nothing of it. And my family never told me about it because they didn't want us to grow up with that. Because, you know, Mandela took over and we were ANC, we were Mandela, viva, viva. Because he had a vision. He had a vision for the youth. He had a vision for education. He had a vision for South Africa. And he had a vision for unity. And I feel that ever since his death, all of the things that he envisioned and he actually got us doing just fell down the wayside. And I think our youth today have got so much hate for no reason. Apartheid was a horrible thing, but we don't live in it anymore. So why are we trying to dig it up from the grave itself and try and bring it in again? Racism is such a huge thing, but you know what? Racism overseas is even worse than what we have here. So we need to try and kill it. We need to kill that fire. And for people that are still part of back in the day, they try add fuel to it. And that's the worst thing that we can ever do. Is, I mean, why must we live our lives with hatred and we must live so apart from one another? Why can't we see that there's unity and diversity and accept one another for their differences? I mean, at the end of the day, our blood is red. And people are multicultural now, and we should love one another. There shouldn't be hatred the whole time.
Well, women should always just have a voice. They should respect themselves enough to educate themselves in every aspect. I find women should be in more leadership roles because our nature of nurturing. Women are strong. We carry babies on our backs too. We will do whatever it takes to get things done, you know. We can multitask. We can see. We're good at seeing things ahead of time, you know. And I think women should really be taking reins on money, you know, on the economic side of things, because we most of the time have to hold households. We have to hold the fort, you know. No matter what, a mother is a mother, you know. And we mothers to everything, mothers to our children, mothers to our you know, our friends, you know. We are just mothers. You know, South Africa is a mother nation. We need to respect our children, learn from our children, teach our children, because we really teaching them value systems so that the whole violence aspect is not how we solve problems. You know, we solve problems with our minds. Corruption is always going to exist because as long as there's rich and there's poor, somebody is eating from someone's hand. We just have to put pillars in place that our kids don't learn how to solve. You know, problem solving is such a mess. in this country. Is how do we solve problems? And I think that's, if we educate ourselves how to solve problems, you know, instead of being aggressive and violent. If we put more money into art, I promise you there'll be a lot of different ways of talking about what's going on, about how to get young people involved in political issues or involved in changing things, because we don't work from a spiritual space in this country. We work from it's almost demonic. The whole aspect of using violence is demonic, it's evil. We're not spiritual. We don't value ourselves and our children. And I keep saying that because kids are watching everything that's happening, and it's like, oh, this is how we solve things. So if we put art saves lives. So hashtag that. Hashtag art saves lives. I'm really a flower child. I love happiness. Like, you know, you know that whole thing of free hugs. Hashtag free hugs. Like standing and just, I'd love to be remembered as somebody who really spread love and who's a good, who's a good person. I think we always aspire to be rich or have things, and it's just aspire to be a good person, aspire to give, aspire to be authentic.
Do not despise where you are at right now, because your presence and your now all contributes and add to your future that you are working towards. And all the places that I've worked in, I've worked in a bank, I've worked in events, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in insurance, I've worked in all these random things, but at the end of the day, knowledge and experience is never wasted, because all the practical and all the corporate values you learn while working for somebody else, one day you take that and you make it work for you. So whether it's music, whether it's baking, whether it's catering, whatever it is that you've learned from a business structure and system, you simply take all of that and you make it work for you. The same way I have to deal with my admin and my communication and my emails is the same way I've dealt with it while working in a company, because if you want to reap corporate rewards, you have to apply corporate ethics to your work, no matter what.